So I just watched Anthony Bourdain's documentary, Roadrunner, or I should say a documentary about Anthony Bourdain called Roadrunner, because I've always been fascinated by his life and why he ended his life. I personally have struggled with chronic suicidal ideation. I'm in therapy now. I'm in group therapy. I have a sponsor. I'm good. I have a team around me. And I've also started a suicide prevention podcast called Before You Kill Yourself. So I had to go see this movie. I had to find out more about him to see how he thought about life, how he framed life, to see what ultimately led him to wanting to end his life. And there's still no answers, right? We can never get answers to ultimately why someone wants to end their life, but we can get clues, we can get ideas. And I just want to share with you my takeaways from this documentary about Anthony Bourdain. So one is he felt like you can't feel anything in the middle. The only way to feel something is that you have to go to the extremes. You have to be on the edge. You have to. That's why he was married a couple times, and he'd be jumping off of cliffs and traveling to these very remote and very dangerous places because he wanted to feel something, and he felt like that's where you felt most alive, is at the edge of things. You can't be in the middle. He hated mediocrity. He had a disdain for mediocrity. He had a disdain for doing anything halfway. So for him, feeling alive was going all the way to the edge of an experience, which you can only do that so many times. As we know, with addicts, because we know his background was, he's on record as saying he was a heroin addict, and along with other drugs and alcohol and cigarettes and things like that. That experience, that first hit, there's never a hit like the first hit. And so for him, his addiction, even though he quit heroin, it just transferred over into travel, and it transferred over into putting himself in these precarious and dangerous situations. But not just him, also the crew, because he didn't want to be in the middle. He wanted to be at the very edge of things. Which brings me to my second takeaway, was that he never went to rehab to break his heroin addiction. He just quit heroin. And as one of the other people mentioned in the documentary, no one's been able to quit rehab or heroin on their own. Like, it requires fellowship. So what ended up happening is that his addiction to heroin then jumped to travel and suffering. It was almost like he felt so undeserving of the attention he received for the book that he had written, that he wanted to suffer in as many ways as possible, whether it was through jujitsu or through experiencing other people's suffering, to feel like he deserved his place on this planet and to deserve the fame that came with the book, Kitchen Confidential. So he became addicted to travel. He talked about, because there's a scene where he talks about how happy he was being at home, but then after a week of being at home and playing the doting father, that he had to hit the streets or hit the road and travel. And that to me is a sign of addiction, is like he found a place where he's happy, but he wasn't comfortable with being happy. There was that sense of inadequacy, like he should be doing more and could be doing more. And so he hit the road and he left the very thing behind, his wife and his daughter, the thing that gave him safety, the thing that gave him solace, the thing that gave him joy. And he left that because he felt like that there was something else out there that he had to do. And if you're an addict, you realize that there's a point where what you're pursuing is became harmful to his health. He started drinking more and smoking more towards the end, and it was harmful to his family. and to his daughter and to the things that he said that he loved. So, for a lot of us who are pursuing something, look at, why you started pursuing it in the first place, and recognize the point at which you need to let it go. Because the third takeaway was there was a point where he no longer wanted to do the show. He wanted to quit. But because he's an addict, he couldn't quit. He even sat the producers down and was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And they were like, cool, fine, bye, see ya. And he couldn't do it. He could not stop. He could not quit. He was too addicted to the travel and also too afraid of just sitting with himself, which is sad. It's extremely sad that he experienced that. And I want to, the last point is that, he traveled so much and he'd be in these places for a week that all he saw was the suffering, unfortunately. When you travel to a place like the Congo or Haiti, these places are have a lot of conflict and are war-torn and bombed out, and a lot of poverty, and you're only there for a few days. All you can see is the suffering. But had he stayed long enough, he would have seen their resilience. He would have seen their community. He would have seen their collaboration. He would have seen their inner resourcefulness. But you don't see that when you're only around a group of people for a few days. It's kind of like when some schools have done this, where they either have you carry around a baby for a week, or put on a fat suit to see what it's like to be fat, or any of these things, or they put a blindfold on you to see what it's like to be blind for a day. You can't get the full experience of something in a few hours or in a week. It really takes 3 months of travel to anywhere in the world to really understand the culture and the people, and to feel like you're a part of instead of an observer. And I think that was his downfall with the travel, is that he was in and out too quick and never really sat down with the people long enough to see and absorb their culture in its highs and the lows. He only saw the lows, and that grated on him for a while. So if you're gonna travel, I highly encourage you to do longer forms of travel, especially in places where it's impoverished. And if you're gonna do short-term travel, go to beautiful places where it's not gonna grate on you so much emotionally, because it's not fair to the community, it's not fair to the people, and it's also not fair to you. And then the last thing I want to say is I was fascinated that Buenos Aires, which is where he started to undergo therapy in his last months there, is a hotbed for psychotherapy. I didn't know. Argentina, they love psychotherapy. They have I think 200 therapists for every 100,000 people. Like half the population is in therapy, and it's not seen as a thing that you go to because you have some issue. You go because it's like taking a shower. It's like eating. It's to maintain your health versus a thing that you do because something is wrong. They don't look at it as a crisis situation. They think of it as a part of your wellness program. So I think if more of us in America and in other parts of the world would adapt that, more of us would also go. Also, if it was cheaper, I know it's super expensive to go, but go check out Roadrunner. My only knock against the documentary is that it started off with him, his success once he published Kitchen Confidential. So we don't get a lot of backstory. We don't get his childhood and all the things that influenced the man up to that point. We get snippets, but not enough. And I felt like they really could have done a deep dive into more of his history and his family and his childhood and his upbringing. But besides that, it's something I want to go check out again. And this has been long enough. I'm Leo Flowers. Check out my podcast, Before You Kill Yourself. It's on iTunes and all those things. And subscribe and like. Peace.